We're going to add some text to our Flutter game with TextPaint. The text will appear on the bottom of our game below the two characters for our visual novel story. This is video 7 in the tutorial series for Flame. Go to the playlist description for the GitHub repository information. I'm going to reduce the background image size to create some space at the bottom of the game so I can place the text on there. The original size was from the Flame game, which was the entire size of the mobile app screen. I'm going to change the original size property to a vector2 component, which has x and y. So x is how wide the image is, and y is how high it is. The text box height is 100 pixels, so we're going to subtract 100 from the height of the image. Now with this 100 pixels space below the characters for the text, we're going to create some pieces of text to place on the screen at different time intervals. The strategy is to create a text paint within the class, and then when we render it, we're going to change the string at every time that we change the dialogue for the girl or the boy. TextPaint does have the text style, so you could change the font or the color or the size of the font. It's the same as the Flutter text style. For this test, to make it simple, we're just going to set the font size to 36, although you could style the font different color for the boy and the girl if you wanted to. I'm going to call it dialogue text paint so that it's clearer that it's the dialogue text that we're managing right now. Previously in this tutorial series, we primarily dealt with the two methods for onload and update, which was in the Flame game class. We're going to use a third method, which is fairly common, which is render. So within the Flame game class, under the update method, create a new override annotation for the render method, which is from Flame game. So this is built in, but we're going to override it, and it requires a canvas. And so we'll initially set up the dialog text paint, which does require the canvas to be passed to it. When we're rendering it, we can now insert the piece of text that we want. Initially, the girl will be talking. So I'm going to go Keiko. The name of the girl is Keiko in this example, colon, and the name of the boy is Ken. So it's Keiko and Ken. I'm using the backslash in front of the single apostrophe to escape it so that the apostrophe does appear in the display. Although that single apostrophe does look a little weird with the backslash, that's just, you need to do that or else it'll end the string. In Dart, you can break up the string across multiple lines by including each line in single quotes. You'll also need to pass it the position as a vector2. So we'll have it be at the bottom of the screen. As the text portion is 100 pixels high, the anchor point is at the top of the text box, so that's why we're subtracting 100 from the position of the text box. Normally this type of visual novel, the next piece of text is triggered with a button press. However, since we haven't learned how to do the button press yet, I'm going to trigger the text to come in and change based on the position of Keiko as she's moving across the screen to talk to Ken. In the future, we'll create a button, and then you'll have more ability to create interaction with your mobile app audience. So when they press it, the text will change. However, right now, we're just going to look at the position of the girl. And when the girl reaches a certain position on the screen, then we'll change the text, both for Keiko and for Ken. So Keiko starts off at position 0 on the, and then as she moves across, when she hits to position 50, which is 50 pixels in from the left of the screen, the text will now appear. Initially, your audience will see a black portion where the text is supposed to be, and they'll just absorb the graphics on the scene. As Keiko starts to move across the screen, you'll be able to see that she is starting to talk, which will increase the audience engagement. To keep track of which piece of dialogue should appear, we're creating an integer dialog level variable here, and we're going to check it to see what level it's currently on and then move it to the next level. So in the update loop, if she's still moving across, if she hasn't stopped yet, we'll first check to make sure that if she crossed that 50 pixel threshold and if the dialog level is at 0, so there's initially no dialog, then we'll set the dialog level, we'll increment it to 1, and then the first piece of dialog will appear. We'll trigger it in the render section. The simplified tutorial is only using a small number of pieces of dialog, so we'll just use a switch statement. The switch statement is from Dart, and the syntax is the keyword switch, and then in the round parentheses you have the variable that you're checking, and then there's these curly brackets. Within each the curly bracket you'll set up your different cases. So in the case that the dialog is 1, we're going to have the text appear, and then we'll break it at the end of the case statement. Using this convention, we can quickly add additional cases and set the piece of text to appear based on Keiko's position of the screen. Let's initially set it up so that there's 3 pieces of dialog, 2 from Keiko and 1 from Ken. So Keiko will have the first piece of dialogue, and she's telling Ken not to go off to battle. He's going to possibly die in battle. Ken's going to feel a sense of honor that he has to defend the village regardless of the cost, because maybe his family background, or he's maybe from a samurai family, and regardless of whether he's going to die or not, he needs to go. And they're going to start this dialogue. So in the future videos, we'll set up a timer so that after she makes her main statement here as the intro to your game, we'll have a button that will appear, and that will give your readers or your audience a bit more interactivity, and they can select which action the story is going to. So to get Ken's response in there, we'll just set up case 2. So let's copy case 1 first and drop it in, and then we'll just change it into case 2. So initially it's case 2 colon, and then we'll copy case 1, which is Keiko's initial piece of text, and we'll change the string so that it's Ken talking. So we'll go Ken colon, and he's going to say he needs to go because that's his role in the village. In this tutorial, you can see how to use the render method, which is new in this tutorial series, to change the components of your game that appear on the screen at different times or based on different actions. We're using the TextPaint right now, and we'll be using 3 pieces of text. The trigger is the position of the girl on the screen, but you can probably figure out how to make it more interactive with a button press, and that will change a flag or something on a variable, and then you can increment the piece of text and change it that way as well too. We'll cover that in a future video. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to the channel for future updates on this tutorial series. This is a hobby of mine, so look forward to your comments or your questions, and I'll try to answer them. I originally started the project for my daughter during shelter in place because we're in California during the time of COVID. But things have moved on, and I kept up the hobby.